The galaxy was old. Older than memory, older than the proudest empires that now ruled the stars. Civilizations had risen like fire, burned brightly and then turned to ash. Others grew like patient trees, spreading roots and branches into the dark. And yet in all the songs and all the stories one name remained: humanity. Humans were a mystery now. For many species they were nothing more than a legend told by elders, a shadow whispered about in quiet tones. Some claimed they were demons who burned worlds. Others called them protectors who once shielded the weak. No two tales agreed, but one detail was always the same. Humans were gone. No one had seen them for centuries. Not a fleet, not a colony, not a single living soul. Their great war banners no longer flew. Their trade ships no longer crossed the lanes. The records of their last battles were too old, buried under dust and fear. The younger races mocked the stories. If humans were so mighty, where are they now? They laughed. If they were gods of war, why did they vanish? But the older races, those who had fought beside them or against them, never laughed. They remembered. They remembered the fire of human engines. They remembered the stubbornness of human captains who would not surrender even when their fleets were burning. They remembered the sound of human voices promising, "We do not break." And in that memory there was fear. For centuries the galaxy had told itself a lie. Humans are gone forever. It was easier to believe they were extinct, easier to pretend their flame had burned out, until the day a strange signal appeared. It came from the edge of the Orion Belt, faint and broken, like an echo across centuries. But the codes within it, they were human. Ancient, yes. Scarred by time, yes. But unmistakably human. At first, no one believed it. The Vithari Alliance dismissed it as a trick, a pirate's ruse to draw attention. The Krail Dominion scoffed, declaring it a false recording meant to stir old fears. Even the Council thought it was nothing. And then the ship appeared. It emerged slowly from the dark, drifting across the silent stars, carrying scars of countless battles. Its hull was massive, blackened by fire, patched by hands long gone. It bore no transponder. It carried no flag. Only one word was carved deep into its side, old human letters still shining through the rust on's retribution. For a moment the galaxy held its breath. It was not a fleet. Not a grand armada sweeping through the stars. Not the return of 1,000 warships. Just one vessel, one warship. Alone. Yet its presence was heavier than 1,000 fleets. Entire sectors froze in silence as the image spread across every channel. Merchants halted their trades. Pirates fled into hiding. Even warlords who had ruled with fire and blood paused their endless wars to watch. The whispers began almost at once. Is it truly human? It cannot be. They are gone. But the name. Look at the name. The empires convened emergency councils. Admirals trembled as they studied the ship. Some argued to destroy it before it acted. Others begged to wait to watch, to remember what stories had said. Do not provoke humanity. Do not awaken their wrath. The ship itself made no move. It did not fire. It did not threaten. It simply drifted, slow and steady, into the contested border between the Krail Dominion and the Theran Republic. The two powers had been fighting for decades over that strip of space. But the arrival of this one ship silenced their war in an instant. For the first time in living memory, the guns went quiet. No side wanted to test the warship. And the strangest part? The ship sent no greeting. No warning, only silence. Its engines hummed faintly. Its shields pulsed with life. But not a single voice came through its comms. That silence was worse than any threat. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, the oldest of the elder species finally spoke. The Varen, a race that had lived for 10,000 years, stood and whispered words that chilled every chamber. I have seen this ship before, long ago in the Age of Fire. It is human. And if a human warship has returned, then the galaxy must prepare. For where one comes, more will follow. The chamber fell into silence. Out among the stars, the retribution drifted on. Watching, waiting. A single human warship, wrapped in mystery, carrying the weight of an entire species thought long dead. And in that moment, it felt as though the galaxy itself had stopped breathing. The Krail Dominion was the first to notice. Their patrol ships had been scanning the Orion Belt for smugglers and pirates when the anomaly appeared on their sensors. At first they thought it was a drifting cargo ship, abandoned and old. But the readings were impossible. Its mass, its energy output, it was not ordinary. It was something else entirely. Admiral Theskar stared at the holographic display, a chill creeping into his ancient bones. This ship, it should not exist, he muttered. The officers around him froze, their usual confidence replaced with uncertainty. The vessel was huge, far larger than any contemporary warship, yet it carried the scars of centuries of battle. Hull plates were blackened and dented, as if each scar told a story of survival and rage. And then they saw the name, UNS Retribution. No one could pronounce it correctly at first, but the letters were unmistakable. Humans. The old warship belonged to a species long thought extinct, a species that had vanished from the galaxy without warning, leaving only stories and whispers. The patrol officers felt it immediately. Fear, reverence, something older than themselves, older than the Dominion itself. Admiral Theskar's communicator crackled as he ordered all nearby fleets to hold position. Do not approach. Do not provoke, just watch. Across the galaxy, other powers were waking up to the same signal. The Theran Republic, ever vigilant against the Dominion, scrambled its scouts. The Vithari Alliance, known for their cunning, activated every listening post along the edge of mapped space. Even the pirates and mercenaries, who rarely cared for politics or borders, felt the tension and retreated into the shadows. No one knew why the humans had returned. Why now? And why only one ship? Rumors spread faster than light. In the crowded ports of the Vithari homeworld, merchants whispered, maybe they want revenge. Maybe the old wars were never finished. In the Krail capital, the aristocrats held tense dinners, afraid that the arrival of one warship could change the balance of power across the galaxy. Even scientists, those who prided themselves on logic and reason, could not explain the anomaly. Every model failed. Every simulation crashed. The Retribution did not move aggressively. It did not fire its weapons or declare its intentions. It drifted slow and deliberate, almost as if it were observing the galaxy, judging it. And yet its presence alone sent waves of unease across every species. Admiral Theskar could feel it. He had faced the Krail Dominion's enemies in hundreds of battles. He had led fleets against entire coalitions. But this was different. The humans were not just warships. They were something more. Something alive in a way that machines and technology alone could not explain. The officers whispered among themselves. Why would a single human warship appear now? Perhaps it is a scout. A warning. A scout? Against what? There is nothing left from their time. But Theskar did not answer. He only watched. His eyes never left the holographic image of the Retribution. There was something in the way it drifted, a silent confidence, a strength that did not need fleets or weapons. It was a ghost of power, a living echo of a species thought dead. The galaxy, for the first time in centuries, felt small, weak, fragile. It realized that even with all its empires, fleets and firepower, it had nothing like this. Humanity had vanished, yet their ships carried the weight of legends. Hours passed, days. Communications buzzed with speculation. Every fleet commander, every admiral, every emperor and council member knew the same truth. One human warship was enough to stop the galaxy. Not because it had fired a single shot, but because it reminded everyone of what humans were capable of. And somewhere in the void, the Retribution drifted closer to contested space. Slowly, patiently. No one knew its purpose, No one dared approach. The stories of old battles, of humanity's stubbornness, of their unmatched courage in the face of impossible odds, filled the minds of all who watched. Fear became awe. Awe became respect. And respect, for the first time, reminded the galaxy of a simple truth. Humans had not been defeated. They had not disappeared. They had only waited, and now one warship alone had returned. The Krail Dominion, the Theran Republic, the Vithari Alliance, all the great powers of the galaxy, watched silently. They had never held their breath like this before. For the first time, they understood that history was not just a memory. It was alive. And it had come back. The galaxy was holding its breath. And in that stillness, one question echoed across every star system. From the richest planet to the smallest outpost. What does one human warship want? The Galactic Council had never convened so quickly. Every species, from the smallest traders to the oldest empires, sent representatives. The chamber, a vast dome of shining crystal and metal, hummed with unease. For centuries, politics had been the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. But now politics seemed insignificant. One human warship had changed everything. The UNS Retribution drifted silently near the contested Orion Belt, visible to every sensor, every eye in the galaxy. It did not fire. It did not communicate. Yet its presence was a warning louder than any cannon, heavier than the gravest threat the galaxy had ever faced. At first, the debate was chaotic. The Krail Dominion wanted to strike first, claiming, "We cannot allow an unknown human vessel into our borders. It could be a trap, a weapon, a scout for a larger force." The Theran Republic, older and wiser, shook their heads. And if it is not a trap? What if humanity has returned for something else? To warn us, to save us? The room was filled with voices, hundreds of them shouting, arguing, pleading. It was the first time the Council had faced something beyond their experience. No charts, no strategies, no alliances mattered. They were small in comparison to the story this one ship told. And then the unexpected happened. A single transmission, ancient and human, cut across every channel. It was not in one language, but all could understand it. Somehow humanity had crafted a message that every species could comprehend. It was short, direct, and terrifying in its simplicity. "We are not your enemy. Stand aside. This is not your war." The chamber went silent. Every representative froze. Some turned to their neighbors, seeking answers and eyes wide with disbelief. Others bowed their heads, unsure of what to make of a species they thought gone forever, speaking from the void with authority and calm. The galaxy had not heard such words in centuries. Not from humans. Not from anyone. It was not a threat. It was not a plea. It was a statement, a reminder of power, patience, and something no other species had. Conviction. Counselor Valar of the Vithari Alliance, one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy, spoke in a trembling voice. They speak as though they know the outcome before it begins. They do not threaten, yet every word carries weight. They are not here to bargain. They are here to act. And the room understood the truth. The humans had returned because something had come that no empire, no fleet, no alliance could face alone. Something ancient, something merciless. And the retribution was their first sign, their warning to the galaxy. Prepare or die. Outside the Council's chambers, fleets shifted uneasily in orbit. Patrol ships waited. Scouts hovered near the human vessel, sensing for danger, for any hint of aggression. But the warship remained silent, a sentinel in the void, unyielding, unmoved. Rumors spread across every star system. Children whispered stories to each other in hushed voices. Traders warned their clients, "Stay in safe space. Stay out of the belt. Humanity is watching." Even pirates paused their raids, sending their crews into hiding. The galaxy realized something profound. They were not the strongest species anymore. Not even close. The humans had disappeared, yes, but they had not been destroyed. They had survived. They had waited. And now, one ship, one vessel carrying centuries of experience, had returned to remind the galaxy of what was possible. And the most chilling thought? The message had not been a threat nor a declaration. It was a warning. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy understood its vulnerability. The humans were not here to play politics. They were here because a storm was coming, a storm that would consume everything if left unchecked. And the retribution was the first wave, the first signal that the humans were ready to face it. Admiral Theskar of the Krail Dominion stared at the void. His ships remained in position, but his hands trembled on the controls. He had fought countless wars, faced enemies that devoured planets, and yet, never had he felt such fear. Not anger, not courage, fear. Because one human warship had reminded the galaxy of its place. Somewhere deep within the retribution, the humans waited. They had no plans to negotiate. They had no fleets to send yet. They only had one ship, one sentinel. And yet, in that single warship, the galaxy could feel the pulse of a species that had mastered survival, cunning, and war itself. The Council could do nothing but watch, wait, pray. For the humans had said only one thing: stand aside. This is not your war. And the galaxy understood. They were about to witness something unimaginable. The silence of the stars stretched on. Ships drifted, eyes widened. The galaxy held its breath, and for the first time in countless ages, every being across the stars knew that history was about to be rewritten, not by fleets or empires, but by one human warship. The warning was over. The Council had heard the humans, and the galaxy had paused, waiting for answers. But no one knew the full story, not yet. Then they came. From the uncharted void beyond mapped space they appeared, the Divan swarm. No fleet had ever been so terrifying. 1,000,000 black shapes moving like a living storm, stretching across the stars. Their ships were not like any known technology. They were alive, organic, and machine-fused into a relentless engine of destruction. Planets had been stripped bare in their path. Civilizations had vanished, leaving nothing but silence. And now the swarm was moving toward the heart of the galaxy. Panic spread faster than light. Fleet commanders tried to mount defenses, but there was no plan, no strategy that could match the sheer scale of the swarm. Entire star systems were evacuated. Trade lanes were abandoned. The richest planets fortified their defenses, but everyone knew it was hopeless. And then, at the very edge of the swarm's advance, the UNS Retribution appeared. It did not hesitate. It did not retreat. It moved toward the center of the storm like a spear pointed straight at the heart of the enemy. Sensors across the galaxy could not believe what they were seeing. One ship, one solitary warship. And it was advancing alone, against what should have been impossible odds. The Divan did not stop. They had devoured worlds before. They had faced fleets larger than entire empires, and they had never been slowed. But this ship, it forced them to reconsider. Their sensors picked up its energy signatures, the way it moved, the calm calculation of its trajectory. It was human. The galaxy watched in silence. For the first time, hope flickered. Admiral Theskar could barely speak. One ship, one human ship. Against that? He looked at his officers. It cannot win. It is suicide. But deep down, even he knew something had changed. Humans were never ordinary. Humans were not just warships or engines of metal and fire. They were determination, cunning, and courage made real. The first clash came at the edge of the swarm. The Divan surged forward, tentacle-like vessels whipping through space, black and sharp as knives. Sensors screamed alarms. But the Retribution held its line. Its weapons, ancient but perfected, ignited the void. Beams of concentrated energy cut through the swarm, shields flashing like lightning. The Divan struck again and again, but the ship moved with grace, precise and unstoppable, anticipating every attack. Across the galaxy, species stopped fighting each other just to watch. Even longtime enemies paused their wars, knowing that something far greater than their petty disputes had arrived. For hours the battle raged. The swarm was endless. They came like waves, each strike more violent than the last, and yet the human warship endured. Every shot it fired, every maneuver it made seemed to carve history into the stars. It was no longer just a warship. It was a legend in motion. The Council received a single transmission during the fight. A human voice, calm, steady, and fearless. Do not interfere. Stand aside. We fight only because it is necessary. No one moved. The words were more terrifying than any weapon. The humans did not ask for help. They did not beg. They simply acted. On distant observation stations, young pilots whispered to one another. They are gods. No, not gods. Something better. Humans. The battle continued for hours, then days. Every corner of the galaxy knew the story unfolding in the Orion Belt. It was no longer a human warship against a swarm. It was hope against despair. It was a reminder that even the smallest force, if guided by courage and skill, could challenge the impossible. Some began to pray. Some began to weep. Some simply stared at the stars, feeling the weight of centuries of fear lifting, replaced by awe. And all the while the retribution pressed on. Its engines burned steadily. Its guns never faltered. Its crew, human and hardened by centuries of hidden wars, fought not for glory, not for survival, but for the galaxy that had long forgotten them. Even the Devons seemed to sense the truth. They had never faced an enemy like this. One ship should have been nothing. One ship should have fallen, but it did not. It would not. And with every strike, with every maneuver, the retribution reminded the galaxy that humans were still here, still deadly and still unbroken. And in that moment, the universe understood the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes, the mightiest force is not numbers, not fleets, not alliances. Sometimes it is one human warship, carrying the courage of a forgotten species, standing against the impossible. The Orion Belt had never seen anything like it. The Devon swarm stretched across the stars, a dark tide of living metal and machinery, endless and merciless. Entire fleets had fallen to this horror before. But now, one ship stood against them, the UNS Retribution. It moved like a ghost through the void, its black hull reflecting the distant starlight. The ship did not hesitate. Every weapon fired with precision, every maneuver calculated to perfection. The swarm attacked in waves, a storm of claws and spikes and deadly energy, but the Retribution met them head-on, unflinching, unyielding. Sensors across the galaxy recorded the battle in awe. One ship, they said. One human warship against millions. One ship that should have been destroyed in seconds, yet now held the line for hours. Inside, the human crew fought like warriors of legend. Their faces were hardened, eyes sharp, hands steady. They did not scream. They did not panic. Every command, every shot, every evasive maneuver was executed with deadly precision. They were not just surviving. They were teaching the galaxy the meaning of courage. Admiral Teskar, watching from a distant command station, could not tear his eyes away. "How?" he whispered. "How can one ship do this?" His officers had no answers. None could. This was not just war. It was human will made real. The first wave of the Devon broke against the human shields like a tide against a cliff. Beams of energy sliced through the swarm, cutting massive vessels in half. Explosions bloomed like dark flowers across the void. Tentacle-like arms of the swarm reached for the Retribution, only to be incinerated by the human guns. The swarm recoiled, then surged again, countless forms pressing forward in relentless fury, and the Retribution pressed forward too. It did not retreat. It did not hesitate. Every strike, every blast, every defensive move was a statement. Humanity would not bend. Humanity would not fail. On the observation decks of other empires, beings of all shapes and sizes watched in disbelief. They had studied humans for centuries. They had read every record, every report, every story of bravery and ferocity, but nothing prepared them for this. One ship alone fighting a million enemies and still standing. The battle raged for 3 days. The Devon never paused. They struck like living storms, adapting, changing, relentless, and still the retribution endured. Its hull was scarred, its shields flickered, its engines burned to their limits, but the ship held. Its crew fought with the discipline of centuries, each human knowing that failure meant not only their deaths but the death of hope itself. And then amid the chaos came the voice, calm, clear, human, transmitted across every frequency the galaxy could intercept. If one ship can stand, imagine what we were. The words were not a boast. They were a warning. A reminder. Across the galaxy, hearts skipped a beat. This was not just a warship. This was humanity speaking across centuries, telling the galaxy that they were a force beyond measure, a species that did not yield, did not surrender, and did not fear. The retribution charged into the heart of the swarm. Its guns fired in perfect unison, tearing through the Devon formations. Ships that had devoured worlds were shattered in seconds. The swarm faltered, confused, leaderless. It had never faced an enemy like this, an enemy that was fewer in number yet greater in courage. The galaxy held its breath. Even the Council, the Empires, the Pirates, they all watched and waited. They could not intervene. The humans did not ask for help. They did not need it. And for the first time in history, the Devon swayed. For the first time, their endless advance was slowed. For the first time, they feared. The retribution pressed on, pushing through the enemy with relentless precision, until the tide began to break. The swarm scattered. Its forces fell apart, retreating into the darkness from which they came. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy understood what had happened. One human warship had held back an unstoppable force. One ship had faced the impossible, and survived at least long enough to change the course of history. The retribution floated among the wreckage of the enemy, battered but unbroken. Its crew tended to damage, patched systems, and prepared for the next strike. They had fought for survival, yes, but also for something greater. A reminder that humanity was not gone, that their courage was alive, and that one ship, one human, could change the fate of the galaxy. Admiral Theskar finally spoke, his voice trembling. The stories. They were true, humans. They are beyond all we imagined. And across the stars, the galaxy began to whisper the same thing. If one human ship can do this, what would happen if humanity returned? The battle was over, or at least the first storm had passed. The UNS Retribution drifted among the wreckage of the Devon swarm. Its hull was battered, scorched, and pitted with holes. Decks had collapsed under energy blasts, and fires still burned faintly in the engine rooms. Yet the ship remained alive, a single black scar across the stars. Inside, the crew moved with quiet determination. There were fewer of them than before, a fraction of the 1,000 who had boarded the ship days ago. Some had not survived the relentless assault of the swarm. Others lay injured, their breathing slow, their hands shaking as they patched weapons and shields that had burned too long under fire. Still no one gave up. Humans never did. Commander Hale walked the corridors, his boots echoing against the steel floors. He stopped at a hatch where 2 young pilots were repairing a plasma conduit. They looked up at him, faces streaked with soot and exhaustion, but eyes bright with something older than fear. Courage. "Keep it steady," he said softly. "Every system counts. Every life counts. We hold the line, even if the line is just one ship." Outside, the galaxy watched. Across hundreds of light years, species that had long doubted humanity now whispered prayers, sent messages of awe, and mourned losses they did not fully understand. The humans were not heroes in the way stories told. They were more. They were determination, resilience, and defiance made flesh. The cost was written into every scar on the ship, every burned circuit, every exhausted breath of the crew. They had given everything to face the swarm alone, and though they had survived, it was clear that their victory had not come without sacrifice. Captain Ryn, the tactical officer, stood at the observation deck, staring into the black of space. The stars seemed distant now, distant and fragile. "We've slowed them," he whispered almost to himself. "But the swarm, it is still coming." Commander Hale joined him silently. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. One ship is never enough, but one ship can remind the galaxy that hope still exists. One ship can inspire fear in an enemy that thought nothing could stop it." They both knew the truth. The Retribution could not fight forever. Its weapons were overheating, its shields were patchwork, its engines groaned with strain. And yet its crew remained steadfast, because humans did not fight for glory. They fought because it was necessary. They fought because survival was not just about themselves. It was about everyone else. Down in the engine room, technicians worked tirelessly to repair the warp cores. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and systems flickered in and out. One human engineer, a veteran of long-lost campaigns, whispered to the machines as he tightened a conduit. "We will not fail, not now. Not ever." It was a quiet determination, one that carried through the halls of the ship, through the hearts of the living, and even into the sensors that the galaxy observed. The humans were wounded, yes, but they were not broken. Every scar on the Retribution was a story of survival, a lesson in resilience. Above them, the stars stretched silently, indifferent, yet watching. Across the galaxy, species began to understand a truth they had forgotten. One human ship could not only challenge a million enemies, it could change the way the galaxy thought about war, courage, and hope. And yet inside, the crew felt the weight of loss. Friends who had trained together, laughed together, fought together, they were gone. Hallways once alive with chatter and commands now carried only echoes. Silence filled spaces that had known life. Commander Hale stood in the bridge looking at the starfield. His voice was calm but heavy with emotion. "We carry the memory of those who cannot continue. We carry their courage, their sacrifice, and we fight for the galaxy, even if the galaxy does not know it yet." A young pilot, barely 19 cycles old, approached him. Her eyes were wide and her voice trembled. "Sir, if we do this alone, will anyone remember us?" Hale knelt beside her. "They will. Not just today, not just tomorrow. Long after we are gone, the galaxy will remember that one human warship stood against the impossible and did not falter." That is how humans are remembered. The Retribution continued to drift forward, patched, wounded, but alive. Its weapons recharged, its shields stabilized, and its engines groaned back to life. The crew moved with quiet purpose, readying for the battle still to come. They had survived the first storm, but the war was far from over. And somewhere deep within the silent reaches of space, the Devon swarm was regrouping, still deadly, still relentless. Yet the humans did not flinch, because even in their suffering, even in the weight of their losses, they carried a truth stronger than fear, stronger than death itself. One human warship could change the galaxy. One human warship could stand against the impossible. And one human warship could teach the universe that courage is immortal. The galaxy watched, waiting, holding its breath, knowing that the next chapter was coming and that humanity would face it, alone if necessary, but unbroken. The galaxy had never been quieter. Not a single fleet moved. Not a single voice rose in the council chambers. Even the stars seemed still, as if they were watching the final act unfold in the Orion Belt. The UNS Retribution drifted forward into the heart of the Devon swarm. Its hull was scarred and battered, shields flickering, engines burning on borrowed strength. The crew moved with quiet determination, every human aware that this battle might be their last. Yet no fear reached their eyes. Only focus, only resolve, only the knowledge that their actions would echo across history. The swarm surged, endless and overwhelming. Black tendrils of living metal struck out like the claws of some ancient predator, tearing through space and soundlessly consuming anything in their path. But the Retribution was ready. Its guns fired in perfect synchrony, beams of pure energy cutting through the darkness, splitting the swarm's formations, shattering the endless tide. The battle raged for hours, but time had little meaning here. Every second was survival. Every strike, every maneuver carried the weight of countless lives across the galaxy. Observers on distant worlds could only watch in awe as one ship, one lone human warship, held back what should have been unstoppable. Inside the Retribution, the human crew fought like a single organism. They had lost friends in the previous waves, their bodies already cold in the ship's medbays, but their spirit endured. Every shot fired, every evasive move taken, was a tribute to those who had given their lives and a promise to the universe that humanity would not break. And then came the final wave. The Devon poured everything they had into one overwhelming strike. A wave of destruction meant to crush the human vessel once and for all. The ship shook violently, hull breaches flaring, lights blinking in warning. Alarms screamed in every corridor. Systems failed. Fire raged through decks. Commander Hale gritted his teeth. "Hold the line!" he shouted over the chaos, voice calm yet carrying the weight of command. "This is not the end." "Not yet." In the bridge, the young pilot from earlier tightened her grip on the controls, eyes wide with fear and determination. "Sir, we can't survive this," she cried. Hale placed a hand on her shoulder. "We don't have to survive. We only have to stand." The Retribution surged forward into the heart of the swarm. Its guns fired relentlessly. Its shields flared and faltered. And then, a single decisive strike erupted from the ship's core. A concentrated beam of energy so powerful it split the center of the swarm in two. The black mass shrieked silently as it tore apart, scattering into the void. And then, silence. The Devon had retreated, leaderless and broken. The tide of destruction stopped. The galaxy exhaled as one, relief and awe intertwining in a single trembling moment. The unimaginable had happened. One human warship had stood against the impossible, and had won. But the victory was not without cost. The Retribution floated in the wreckage of the battlefield, battered and dying. Smoke rose from its engines. Fires raged through its hull. Systems flickered and failed. The crew moved slowly, tending what they could, knowing the fight was won but survival uncertain. Commander Hale looked out at the stars through the observation deck. "We have done it," he whispered. "We have held them back. For now." His voice trembled not from fear, but from the weight of what had been lost. Somewhere deep in the ship, the young pilot who had questioned survival moments ago knelt beside a fallen comrade, tears streaking her soot-stained face. They did not die in vain," she murmured. "They saved everything." Across the galaxy, species watched and waited. Empires that had once bickered, fleets that had once warred, all paused in collective astonishment. The stories of human courage, of human determination, were no longer myth. They were real. One ship, one species had reminded the galaxy what strength truly meant. The message spread quickly. It was simple, yet carried more weight than 1,000 declarations. One human warship stood against the impossible. One human warship changed the galaxy. And in that silence, in the stillness of the aftermath, the galaxy understood something profound. Fear and awe mixed together, and hope flickered like a distant star. Humans had returned not to conquer, not to rule, not to bargain. They had returned to remind the galaxy that courage, resilience, and willpower could stand against any storm. Somewhere in the void, the Retribution's lights blinked faintly. The crew tended to the wounded, repaired what they could, and prepared for the unknown. They had survived this battle, but the war was far from over. And still, their presence alone had rewritten history. The Council, the empires, the citizens of countless worlds, none would ever forget this moment. The humans were not gone. They were alive. They were unbroken, and they were waiting. For the galaxy, it was the beginning of a new era. For humanity, it was a reminder of who they had always been. Survivors, warriors, and legends. And somewhere in the stillness of the stars, one truth echoed louder than any weapon, louder than any empire, louder than any fear. If one human warship could do this, imagine what would happen if humanity truly returned. The galaxy would never be the same again.